thank you for allowing me to present this carbide thing. I would apologize, I canceled back in March. We had a family issue, and it was the right thing to do. I've been turning about 13 years, so I'm gaining some experience and enjoying it. We've owned AZ Carbide for about 5 years now. We've expanded the line greatly. All of our carbides are nano carbides, meaning small particles, and about 8% binding solution goes in it. They are pressed, then they go in for baking, and they're baked. They come out of baking and they are polished. We polish all of our carbide flat tops. It's important to put that edge on. It's similar to putting an edge on a knife with stropping. And you'll see that real small edge on a knife. It's highly reflective and highly polished. That's what we're doing with these. Our angle of cut on the flat tops is between 25 and 27 degrees. It's all calculated out. It's something we've been working with. If we can go to overhead. We'll talk about the flat top cutters first. And these are the square cutters. And the most common question I get asked is, what's the difference and why are there so many square top cutters? Well, this is a radius of 2. So that's about the size of a dime. Then you have a radius of 4 inches. That's about the size of a nickel. And then you have the 6, which if you look at the 6 across here, it's not very bulbous, okay? And what the bulbous area does, especially on the 2, and I don't know, that doesn't show up very well, but it's got a pretty good curvature between the 2 corners. And I also have that in an 11 millimeter, which is this, okay? Now, if you're a pen turner and you're turning with the small tools, and you're gonna do a pen, when you come off the bushing, if your hand and your body are wrong, this is a square cutter. If I move just that little bit, that point digs in. And when I first started doing pens, I'm trying to figure out, where is that mark coming from? Why am I getting that? And you can't get it out at that point. And all that is your hand just getting out of line, your body, and that point digs in. So when you put the 11 millimeter on with a 2-inch radius, the bulbous area you can lay against the bushing, goes straight across, and the point is removed, it's back away. Even if your body's out of condition and you move, that bulbous area still protects you. And it's a no-brainer. I think that once I discovered it, I was much more successful at turning pens. Now, flat top cutters, again, round. We go from 18 to 9 millimeter. These are flat tops, again, all of them polished. I don't know if they look it there, but they are. The larger squares and the larger round are 832 screws. And they are Allen wrench screws. The smaller cutters are 440 screws. And the biggest problem we have as a company is guys will say, hey, I want to order, and I'll say, what tool are you using? What's it going on? I don't know, it's homemade. Well, we run into a major problem there. So the next question is, what screw are you using? And that's usually a good indicator of the size tool they're using. And it helps us a great deal. Now, the other is the shear cup cutters. These little jobs here range from 6 millimeter to 12 millimeter. They are the most aggressive cutters in the market today. So if you can imagine, If I blew that up and looked at it, there'd be a screw in here, and this is my cutting edge. And if you go straight in, it's aggressive. I mean, it's just gonna tear you apart. So you always do what you can to tip these at an angle and slice the wood. And if you do any end grain hollowing, you're gonna wanna use these. I mean, they're just wonderful cutters. You can get a smooth cut. The little 6mm is the #1 seller. I have a 1.5-inch solid steel bar, 7 foot long, weighs 90 pounds. On the end of that bar is this little, it's actually this little hogger, okay? And you don't even know there's a cutter out there, but they do a great job. They are called hoggers for a reason. Now, in doing some research and working with Carter, I came up with a carbide teardrop. I think this is 30-some millimeters by 15 roughly. All of our dimensions are on the website. From the screw size to the thickness, everything is there, including the angle of cut. So this is 30 degrees. It's the thickest cutter we have. I think it's 3.5 millimeters thick. It is unbelievably sharp. It is a great hollowing tool. It's better than the hogger. It's about the only thing I will hollow with. I just love the tool. And after talking with another gentleman, he said, can you do it in a negative rake? So we did this in a negative rake. A gentleman buys 10 or 12 of those a month. He resells them at Steve's Center. Steve does some wonderful pieces. We also have the diamonds, and they are flat tops. Comes a couple different ways, pointed and radius. This is my pointed. I don't know if you're gonna be able to make that out. And that's the radius, okay? They have specific uses and non-uses. I will show you almost hollowing with the radius, which you cannot do with the pointed. And when I say pointed, I mean it's needle point. So if you want to put a fine line in a piece of wood, you can put a fine line in. And I'll show you that on a piece of wood. We make that in several sizes. I've got a 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, and the 210s. Now, another question that comes up frequently is, can I sharpen my carbide? Absolutely, with the right tools, okay? You have to use a diamond card and the lubricant. We sell the Trend lapping solution, okay? And yeah, we sell the cards also. I'm out of the 300, 600, supply chains kind of let me down out of the UK. This happens to be a 300, 600. So when you want to sharpen a carbide, shoot. That's all I need. This is a lifetime supply for sharpening carbide. So I'm going to sharpen this dime for you. And we're just going to move it in circles. And as it sharpens, the carbide will come off, and there'll be a gray area. And put a nice edge on that. Let me change this out, and this will be fun, because this happens all the time. You can see the little bit of gray on here, that's the dime. And I know, how many of you here have carbides? Everybody. I'm glad to see you'll admit it, okay? There's nothing disgraceful about using carbide. Now, this just stripped out. How many of you had that happen? Yeah.
I don't know, I don't have carbides.
Now, the couple ways you can do this, lay it on concrete, hit a hammer here, it shatters it. And this usually happens the very first time you want to rotate it. So you take a pair of pliers. Wow. And you give it a twist. And you can see I've ruined the cutter, but I've saved the tool. Now you can drill those out, but you have to remember, you drill too deep, there is a countersink in the tool itself so that the screw can settle in. I'll just drop that screw. So that's okay. I can get by without that tool. Yeah, I do. You saw some of the product we have in that little case. That's only about half of what we carry. And I carry almost as many different size screws. And it's difficult. So we'll sharpen this one. See the gray starting to come out? Now every one of our cutters says AZ on it. You go to Woodcraft and you buy a carder, it'll say AZ on it. AZ's almost gone. So that also tells me I've sharpened it. I've taken just the slightest amount off and I can feel the edge. How do you know when you need to sharpen or change? It's no different with carbide than your standard tools. It doesn't feel like you can cut right. Something just doesn't feel right. You can't gauge what it is. You're working too hard. You're expending too much energy. Your tool is dull. Go sharpen your tool and everything starts to come back together. Your coordination, everything's gonna feel much better. Now, we're gonna move on to the Pro Tool. You can see this is filthy. I've been turning my drone for about 2 weeks. Has a lot of sap and sugar in it. If I take my bowl gouge over and I forget to clean the flute, and I put it up against the grinding wheel, and it smells like sugar burning. There's that much sap and stuff in it. When Carter asked me to come up with another tool, we were already producing this Pro Tool. And that's a Keith Lochner. Keith is a resin turner. And because of the patent on negative rake cutters, we weren't able to come out with a cutter yet. It's in the works. So what Keith wanted to do is angle this down. This is angled at 30 degrees. Produces the same ribbons as a negative rake cutter, okay? I don't turn resin, so I haven't used the tool much. Negative rakes have been a hit, and I get a call at least 3 times a day. I've worked with Dave Curley on a design where I can work around the design patent. I've watched some other people. I carry negative rake cutters, a duplicate of Rikon. I also have a square that's a duplicate from somebody else. So I'm hopeful I'm safe. I'm trying to contact another lawyer to look at my designs and compare them to others. The bar is 15¼ inches long. It goes in approximately 6½ inches into the handle. This bar, my bar, weigh 1 pound, 2 ounces. So you think about the amount of weight you now have. It helps with vibration. It helps with chatter. The handle, the Pro handle, weighs 1 pound, 2 ounces. Now this was purely an accident, okay? But now we're in at almost 2 pounds on the tool. So then as we got into the design, I hate Allen wrenches. I hate stripping out cutters. So we went with a Torx head screw, okay? Now that's an M4 by 8 Torx head screw. I've not yet stripped one out. I don't know that you can. I guess if you work at it and really wanted to, you could. So what that did for me is we started looking, that's a 12 millimeter cutter. The hybrid 12 millimeter cutter is the tool that I use for finish cutting. Okay? That 12 millimeter is the greatest cutter we have, but the tool's too short. And I said, you know, I want to put a 12 millimeter cutter on a long bar. And they thought I was crazy. Well, with a 12 millimeter or with a round cutter, it doesn't key against anything. So I said, okay, if it doesn't have to key, then why can't I use all these cutters? This is a 16 millimeter cutter, it fits, a 9 millimeter, a 12 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter shear cup cutter, all fit this tool. Now there's also a 15 millimeter square, which is this. It also fits. Now we were trying to get this done in a fairly short period of time. We were gonna add a diamond, but it was gonna be an engineering nightmare. So we skipped that. There's roughly 8 cutters that'll fit my bar. Now, there's a problem with the square, and really the design of this, see how this is a smaller bar. See how thick and flat it is here? Now we did take the heel off so you can ride the bevel. We're following the same 30 degrees throughout. So now we want to go to this bar. I wanted it smaller. I wanted to be able to change things up. But when you get this small, and I don't remember, that's probably 4 millimeters, if you get that small, you can't stay flat. So now, Keith's is even worse, okay? When I present my work, my tool to the work, I have to be a little further away because of how small this area is, okay? But it allows me to get down to a 9 millimeter cutter, which is used on many hand hollowing tools. Plus, they're all Torx screws. One screw fits all of these cutters, and I think it's a huge advantage. And we've sold a bunch. Questions?
You said that you, on the instructions on my carbide, says come in at your work flat and at 90 degrees.
Yes.
And you said you put a little angle on it to
Yes.
cut better.
And I'll show you that in a minute. That's why this is called the inappropriate way to cut with carbide, okay? When carbides first come out, I asked to teach carbide turning. And the company that came out with them said, no, we've seen you do a shear cut. These should never be used to shear cut. Present at 90 degrees and scrape. So let's show you the difference. I think there's been much more acceptance of carbide tools recently. Pat Carroll from Ireland, it's a standard question he asks all professionals. What's your opinion of carbide? And most of them are going to tell you, use the tool you want, use the tool that you become most efficient at. And I don't think there's anybody that's doing hollowing that wouldn't use carbide. Are we plugged in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see cord down here, not plugged in.
Okay, that explains it.
We never checked that. Yes.
Yep.
Check power. Hey, Ron, while you're doing that, on the card that you used to sharpen? Yeah. You used the 300 side?
I usually use the 600 side.
The question was, on the card that you use, what side do you use? They can't hear you online, unless
Oh,
you're.
yeah, I'm sorry. The question was about the diamond card and which one I use. I use the 600 side. I carry it in 600, 1000, and 300, 600. The most popular is the 300, 600. That's the one everybody seems to use. Now, the question always comes up, why can't I use water? And Doug donated a couple of his old cards to me, and he used water. You know, that's a $10 bottle of lapping solution he didn't want to buy. Well, it's all warped up, okay? It started to separate. Well, to get a good sharpening, you need a flat surface. You're not going to get it on a washboard.
Hey, Bruce, can you tell him the headstock is loose?
Is it?
Hey, Dave, Ron, oh,
Move it.
okay, headstock's tight.
How's that?
Maybe that's why it didn't tighten so well. So at the retreat, and we'll talk more about that later, everybody's carrying in carbides, okay? And I started watching them, and they, out of respect, turned slower at the retreat, okay? It made me happy. But they were putting tremendous pressure on the piece of wood, and I'll show you what happens. I'm gonna back it off. We're roughly 600 RPM. You have two speeds you're gonna work with. Speed of the lathe, speed of the feed. How fast you move and how much you move. Now I've got shredded wheat, okay? Too slow a speed, too much pressure. This is how you sell traditional tools. They show you how to do that, okay? I've seen many videos showing you the incorrect way. So if I pick up the speed and lighten my cut, I get a different cut. Whoops, sorry out there. A little better. So all that was is speed. So now I'm gonna pick up more speed. 2,000. Probably start with 180, okay? 2,000 RPM, flat cut, flat blade. Now I'm gonna do a shear cut. Now this is just punky old maple. From here to here, pretty good. How about my tool? Yeah, can I have that back? And the reason I want to turn with it is it's heavier and I get a better feel for what's going on. Thank you. Sorry? Yeah, I'm tipped like this. Can you see that at all on the screen? If I tip this, I don't know that the lighting's right. I'm sorry? See, I've got it tipped like this, going across through here. And you can go either direction, okay? 30 degrees, roughly. Like this, okay? Really, it's a hard angle to see. Now, I'm gonna take the shear cup cutter, 10 millimeter. Part of the advantage of this is the
All of a sudden, I feel like I have a sore throat and I've been sniffling. I want to test, but I just called CVS. I think you can go there and get your.
Hey, Bruce, can you tilt that?
I'm not sure where that was coming from. So a shear cup cutter, I will not cut like this. I pull back because I want to be certain I'm on the steady rest before I engage the wood. Now you can see the kind of shavings it's taking. So if I was at 2,000 RPM, you better be holding on to the end of this, okay? Because you can bury it in. And even at that slow a speed, 200, it's almost a better cut than the flat top cutter. But now I'm gonna angle this, get my speed back up. That's 2,000 roughly. Yeah, there I'm right in the bubble. So now I rotate in and pick up my cut. Ride the bevel, move in. Now this is just some funky old maple from a couple of years ago at the retreat. I don't know, probably start with 320, okay? I forgot a bowl. I've got a bowl that was terrible. In fact, I gave up turning it, threw it in the pile, and then I went back and thought, no, I can do this. I did the entire outside and never sanded it using the shear cup cutter, okay? Now, I'm not gonna tell you, this takes a lot of practice. This is not something you're gonna throw up and say, hey, I can do this tonight. It'll be tomorrow night. but that's shear cutting.
A minute ago, when you were really hogging on that thing, was it the size of the cutter being so small, or you going in 90 degrees?
Yeah, I was going in at 90 degrees, and let me get my cutter. Now, all of a sudden, I'm cutting with that much of the cutter, okay? That's a tremendous amount on these shear cup cutters. It's a design of the cup that has to do with it now. If I was to cut with a flat top 12 millimeter, and if you noticed, with every cut, I lightened up. So there's a cove on dry maple, probably a 220 cut, okay? But this, so keep in mind, shear cut, flat top, shear cut. Got a piece of resin here, just something I've had around that I play with a lot to test cutters and stuff. Yes. It comes in two sizes, 12 and 10. I would only use the 10. The 12 fits, that's why I mentioned it. I got lucky. All right, now, I would not cut with a shear cup cutter, okay? And if any of you turned much on acrylic, when it shatters, it's like a piece of glass, and it'll embed in your skin. So we're gonna come down here, and I'll use the 12 millimeter flat top. Let me screw this up. Light cut, keep moving. Now that's a $11 cutter, or you can buy the $20 negative rake. Again, it's about learning how to use tools. It doesn't matter what tool it is. 12 millimeter cutter on a Pro Bar. This is the Lochner negative rake. We do sell a small handle that goes on here. I negated to bring it. It's handy, especially, you know, many of us start with pens, and you buy a little pen toy tool, and all you can do are basically pens, or maybe a bowl about that big. So with the Pro Tool, you can now go up to doing huge pieces. You know, I've hung this out to the collar. I shouldn't, but I did. Negative rake, Pro Tool. Yeah, it's dipped at 30. You see it? Got the wrong screw in it, it's too long. But it's easy enough to do with any flat top cutter. Now those would need some work, some cleaning up, but it'll get you there. It's pretty easy to do. If you learn to shear cut, you're gonna cut your sanding down to nothing. Pardon?
Who the hell would wanna do that?
I can't imagine.
Oh, it's sandpaper and everything.
Klingspor would not be happy, would they? All right, now, that's kind of some of the basics. I've got a piece chucked up over here I screwed with a little bit yesterday. Yeah, my chuck is dirty as can be. That's madrone. That's what causes all of this. Every tool I have is sticky right now. They won't get clean till after the retreat. Somebody's car alarm? Yes, the piece is shrink wrapped. I shrink wrap almost everything. My drone is usually shrink wrapped while I'm working on it. Kind of protects me from the sticky shower and keeps it wet. If I'm lucky, this will be true yet. Hollow forms always get shrink wrapped. I'm not the fastest at hollowing. If anybody's interested, I'll be selling my large hollower, 7-foot bar, 1.5 inch, 90 pounds, complete setup.
Does that take a special tool rest then too?
Oh yeah, a big tool rest, yeah. I've just made the decision on tool to do some of this stuff. At least my body has. I'm gonna show you the other way, okay? We'll do a cut with a rounded diamond and a pointed diamond. On my tools, you'll see blue tape on some of them. My 12mm hybrid, if it's got blue tape on it, it's a brand new cutter, and I'll only do finish cuts with it. My other one that has no tape on it, I'll just pound the hell out of it till I have to change it. Then I change the tape over to that one. That way I've got the sharpest edge all the time. All right, so I've got the pointed diamond. And you can see how small that line is. Maybe you can see it, I don't know. Let me put another one in there. Now, I'll do the radius. Round tip. You can see it gets much bigger. Now, depending on what you want to do with this, you could fill the big one with powdered copper or powdered metals. You can the narrow one also. If you wanted, you could take copper wire and put inside the wide one. That's the difference. Now, I use it a little differently. When I'm doing a hollow form or a bowl, I will set my, come here. Probably not enough light. I'll set my wall thickness with the diamond, especially if I want to save the bark. These are the best things in the world for saving bark. But you don't want to use the pointed. And I'll show you why. Thanks. But remember, everything around this is sharp, okay? You're cutting from there to this point. I'm not going to turn thin. I don't need to be in a NASCAR race. But I do need more speed. I don't know why we're getting the noise. Yep. That would probably change shape last night. Not as much noise. Now, if I didn't hear that noise and was home, I'd cut all the way across there, okay? I can take a cut just about that wide as I go across. I mean, it's aggressive, but there's something screwy here and I don't like it. This is the Pro Tool 12mm flat top cutter. Yeah, I don't think my chuck is not set into the, there it goes.
Oh, yeah, there's a gap there.
Yeah. Oops. There it is. Now we're locked. Sounds good.
Making me nervous.
Yeah, it was making me nervous too, Pete. Not gain some speed. We'll leave this thick wall. The drone was too thick of a cut, too big of a cut. A little bit, not much. My tool rest might be a little hard. But you can see it was a 12 millimeter cutter. I mean, it removed a lot of wood. Now, I don't have any way to show you the teardrops. Those are usually used on a captive or hollowing system of some kind. But they are the most efficient, they really are. You can see I got a little thin, you can see shadows through there now. Yeah, it'd take me 20, 30 minutes to have that down and have it thin. Questions, comments? I'm sorry?
How thin do you go with
Well, for most of the work I'm doing now, 2 millimeters. I guess that's the thickness of, about a nickel, something like that. I've got one, yesterday I turned, it's about 1 millimeter. As I pushed against the side, it started moving on me a lot, so that was the end of it. That's as thin as I could get. So, new eyes helped that tremendously. I was about ready to give up on wood turning because I just wasn't seeing properly. And when she said, cover your right eye and read the chart, I couldn't find the chart. Yeah, it was that bad, so. Questions, comments? Yeah. Yeah.
The question is, can you sharpen those with a stone instead of the card, the diamond card?
Yeah, I would guess you could. I mean, you take 1,000 grit diamond, it's, there's not a lot there. So I'm guessing you could do it with a stone. I've never tried it. I've got some good stones. The cards work great. If you use lapping solution, trend lapping solution, our cards are guaranteed 5 years, okay? If you buy the cheap ones, the inexpensive ones, at certain places, the way the diamonds are adhered to the card, they won't hold up, okay? Now, the guy, James Berry, used to work for Trend. He made these, sold them to Trend. They parted ways, so James is hooked up with myself and Jimmy Clues and Cindy Drozda to sell cards for him. So he's good about it. He's a little slow on delivery right now. I need to touch base with him. Okay, but don't be afraid to sharpen them. There are certain companies out there that'll tell you, don't buy any cutters that are polished. We don't polish ours. And then they're gonna tell you, you can't sharpen ours. They're wrong. Carbide's carbide. You can sharpen it, okay? Yeah, I mean, my knives, my kitchen knives, I start with 300 depending on the condition of the knife, and then go to 600, and maybe I'll go to 1,000. On these, 600.
How do you wipe off the card once you?
I take a cloth.
The question was, how do you wipe off the card
And,
between
any kind of
sharpenings?
cloth and just dab off the oil. Don't leave it on there. Another thing, when you're gonna sharpen it, make sure your blade's clean, because you don't want all this sap and gunk from madrone or any other wood building up on your card. When you replace your cutter, take the base of the tool where the screw hole is, take a wire brush and clean it out. If you don't, and there's debris there, your cutter's not gonna sit as flat and flush as it needs to. I know guys that haven't cleaned theirs. I can promise you they're gonna break their diamonds, okay? And I had a guy call me the other day and said he broke his diamond, and he had reversed it, hadn't cleaned it. And, you know, we replaced it, but you want these to set flat and flush. That's hard to say. Other questions? Takes practice, especially the shear cut, okay? It does with any tool, the bowl gouge. I've taught the bowl gouge for many years. You can make many different cuts with it, but it takes practice. If you grab a hold of if you golf, you take lessons, that's a mentor. You pay for the lessons. You learn how many different ways to strike the ball. Even just take your 5-iron out and go out with a pro, okay? Take your fly rod out with Joe, and he's gonna teach you how to fly fish. But mentors are important. I know a couple of you asked about mentors earlier, and Doug addressed it. You can accelerate your turning through the club and through mentors. Get involved, okay? Or let's do the retreat. The retreat is nearly full. We have right around 90 people signed up. That's my attendees and my instructors. We're around 25 instructors. 4 of those instructors will leave my retreat to demo at the AAW in Chattanooga. So that gives you an idea of the caliber of the instructors we have. Our instructors receive no pay, no stipend, pay their own way, and stand in line to be an instructor, okay? We're gonna have to set up a date to pick up the lathes and the AV equipment here and take them to my place. And I hope some of you can pitch in and help. I'll set that up with Doug and John Barron. We use John's trailer every year. This could be the last retreat. Gotten older, tired, and I hate to give it up because it's well known. So we'll take it day by day, get this over with. I have tremendous amount of wood. If some of you need wood after the retreat, there'll be wood there. There's maple, walnut, cherry, and then I'll be selling some of the madrone burl. I've got that 700 pounds coming in. We'll use quite a bit at the retreat, and then I'll have to decide how much do I need. So, yeah, Ralph.
Alongside the mentor part, I've been doing this for years, and there's about half a dozen mentors in our group. The mentor can take you from being a rank amateur to be kind of a maybe not professional, but just an hour or two with the mentor will save you
Well, and you're right, Ralph. It'll accelerate your wood turning tremendously. I need to get with the right mentor so I can get one step up like Ralph. And I think, Ralph, you brought up a point today that hit me about teaching someone to make spindles. I happen to know where 90 people will be in 2 weeks. Did you hear me, Ralph? Yeah, that's what I figured. You know, in 7 years, that's one class we have not taught, spindle turning. Well, skew, but not spindle. It's not duplicate. I'll call your wife. Any other questions?
Hey,
I hope I
Bruce.
showed you a little bit about carbide.
Bruce, this is Alfred. I have a suggestion for Ron, what I use for my screws. of my carbide bits. If you can highlight me, if you can highlight me, I can show him what I use.
We can get you on screen here. We got it set up right now.
Okay, this is what I use. I use anti-seize, and I just put a drop of that before I use it. I put it in the screw it in, and every time it doesn't get full up with the sap and all the other stuff that comes from the wood, and it's so easy, makes it so easy to take it out and put it back in. I just use it one time, and I never have to reapply it. I found this. This is actually a bronze. It's a bronze anti-seize. You can get it from any auto shop or, Murray's or whatever. I'm sure that Ace carries it too. And yeah, it helps me a lot. And you don't have to fight those and strip the threads and, or the head. I find it very useful.
Alfred, we have used some of that, and in many cases it works. I think the biggest problem comes in with something like Madrone, where you're 50–60% water, and you might as well have soaked your tool in it. But yeah, it's worth trying. There are several types of antifreeze like that, so yeah, feel free. I will tell you this, on the Pro Tool, you're not going to need it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alfred. Yeah, go to the automotive store, okay? Comes in little tubes. Yeah. Anti-seize, anti-lock, there's several of them. You put it in the screw hole, run your screw in. And,
Yeah, typically you put it on the threads.
yeah. I don't mind if you take a pair of pliers and break it all up to get it off. I'm okay with it.
Each and every time.
That other stuff doesn't work, okay? What else?
I put a question in chat there, Ron. Can you use the CBN wheel to sharpen carbides?
Yes, Ken Rizzo would be thrilled if you did that, okay? Because carbide will eat up that CBN wheel. Check with Ken, he'll tell you the same thing. Don't do it, okay? Diamond cards are, I don't know, 20, I got the one at $20, one at 25, something like that. You're gonna pay a lot more for a CBN wheel than that. Don't do it.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
Pardon?
Unless you start selling.
Yeah, I'm not selling CBN wheels, no, no.
One more time, can you show that oil that you're?
Oh, yeah.
Here, show it on, they're passing around.
They wanted to see the oil we were using. This is a special compounded oil. You think I can throw any oil on there? Throw some DW40 on there or whatever it is. The problem is that the viscosity is not right. Your cutter wants to float. It doesn't want to set down in the diamond and do a good job. So they've got this special lubricant. I don't know what it is. I guess I haven't looked at it that closely. I know it works and it guarantees the card. And that's really all I need to know. And it sharpens. It's cheap. It is cheap. I think that's $13 a bottle, okay? And you need a drop every time you sharpen a carbide. A drop. Now think about that. That's a pretty good sized bottle.
Contains WD-40.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's in it.
Yeah, somebody does. They're not willing to discuss it on the advice of their lawyer.
That's your eyes.
There's the lapping solution. It's by trend. It is on our website. I am sold out now. That's the last bottle. And that's come out of our kitchen for knives.
Yeah. Can I see that again?
Oh, yeah. And those of you who are coming to the retreat, you'll be able to taste some madrone juice, okay? That's the biggest secret on the internet right now. And I've had so much fun with it. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Ron.